Hi, I'm Rory Greener from XR Today, and you're joining the August edition of the Big XR News Show. Joining me today is Jay Latta and Amy Peck, a couple of our series regulars. Thank you so much for joining us today. But it'd be good to learn a little bit more about what you've been seeing in the industry over the past couple of months, your current experiences, and maybe what you're looking forward to in terms of events, some other bits coming up. Jay, why don't we kick off with you? How has your past couple of months been in the XR industry? Any observations and what you're looking forward to?
So observations, I see, of course, all the discussions around the Apple headset, all of these different streams, the bullshitting, the fanboys, yada, yada, and so on. Also the secret announcements, how would a light device look like, and so on. No one knows anything. We all know it, but we pretend to know better. Observations are that still the business, so digital twins, of course, on the business side, it's somehow set. Everyone knows what should be done. Of course, the pockets are not so deep currently. Too many other uncertainties. What I observe the most is that we repeat to make the same mistakes again and again and again, which means, oh, let's make a classic dashboard if it's on the business side, or let's adopt any kind of freaky, fancy, whatever comes around, let's say Altspace and so on, which of course on the business level is not the right thing. So people are trying to do stuff, but do not have a plan. And what they completely currently miss is that XR can be in the businesses extremely helpful, but it should not be coined by the businesses. Example, your boss does not need to see the environment how you see it. He sees it from his perspective, how he would like to see it. If Amy prefers to be on a Hawaiian beach, drinking her mojito, then it should be in her environment, the display what she sees. When her boss or whomever looks into it, it should look simply like the usual prisoner cell that they love to put the people into. So simply this differentiation between me and them. So having even the UX UI, it's about the people. So this human centricity that is currently being captured by HR, pretending to be human centric, not even understanding what humans are because they still see them as resources. They don't really realize that XR is the individual power, that they can set up the frameworks, but I should be the one who defines what I see, how I see. It's same with the Gen AI. Many are bullshitting about we need this and that, and we simply press it again into just a dumb chatbot that somehow reflects on your workflows, business processes, all of this nonsense, instead of recognizing that the real superpower is docking onto you, your personal assistant, understanding how you work, how do you do research, what are your recurring tasks, and so on. I don't need it to adapt on the company. The company, through their APIs, should adapt on me. This is human centricity. Same with humanoid robots. I'm currently obsessed with humanoid robots. Because the big superpower here is that these could become your, let's say, extension of the digital companion on the physical level. The University of Tokyo is developing a robotic chauffeur, which is a humanoid robot that can sit behind your steering wheel and drive your car. The implication here is I have infrastructure that is human-centric. If I want to use it, I can use it. If he fails, I simply kick him off the driver's wheel and use it. Same within the companies. If our human infrastructure remains and humanoid robots are there to support us, you will get a completely different dynamics. So it's really about this human centricity on all levels. If it's AI, if it's robotics, if it's XR, XR is one of the most powerful because this is how we see our world. I see currently that we will fail again and again and again because investors are disappointed that the dollar is not coming fast enough in, that companies do not see the ROI that fast how they've experienced it. And so a winter currently is not a technologically caused winter. It's simply I don't get my craploads of money out of it winter.
It'd be great to learn. So there's a couple of points that I'd like to dive into once, Amy. If you can give us your perspective over the past couple of months or past month or so, any of your observations.
I mean, I've been very focused on digital twin. A lot of my day-to-day with one of my main clients right now is focused on that. And Jay definitely touches on a piece of this that's really important. The good news is that the group I am working with are, their UI UX team is in from the very beginning. We are understanding user workflows. We're understanding what it is that they care about, what they need to accomplish. And what Jay is talking about is, having this much more kind of personalized experience. And I think we will get there. We've seen glimpses of that in adaptive learning, where we're able to leverage some of the biometric data to understand how, and even just the heat maps of how, an individual user might move through an experience, especially a learning environment, understand whether or not they're grasping the concepts and then delivering curriculum that is very specific to the way in which they learn. So we've sort of seen that in process. It is challenging because, again, it's collecting a lot of personal data and then applying that personal data. How much data do we trust our employers with of ours and so forth? So there are a lot of guardrails we're going to need to put on those data flows, where those that data lives and who owns it. And it is, of course, a case that I think we've all talked about for self-sovereign data, right? We need to be able to have our own databases, manage our own databases, have an AI agent that can help us be the interface between what data is made available for what purpose. And then, again, if I wake up and I'm queen of all things tomorrow, that data, when we give permissions for it, has a time to live on those servers. Now, again, that's a big trust issue. Like, are we really going to be able to trust that that becomes the norm and bake that into our standards and bake that into our interoperability? That remains to be seen. I'm not as pessimistic ever as Jay is. I don't think we'll fail over and over again. I think we're learning our lesson. But it is a challenge because I do find that we're still really looking at all of these technologies in this very individualized way, and not individualized by the user, individualized by the technology. So it's like, this is our XR solution. Oh, and then later on, how could we tack on XR? How could we tack on AI? How do we bring in automation? And really, we need to start looking at it in advance, and again, not just process improvement, right? How are we really going to do things differently? And then we apply technologies in a way that allows us to do that. And I think that's just one of the places that sometimes we miss. But I do find that really strong R&D teams, that's their role. They have all the fun toys. They start to think about bringing in a multitude of technologies from the very beginning, but then they don't always get the funding to execute. So we're just in this it's always down to the economics, frankly.
Exactly. And this is one of the struggles with my clients when they tell me, Jay, we need options. Describe us options. No, I give you a solution. And if you want options, then hire, let's say, McKinsey or Bain Company. The problem with options is I can help them to help themselves, to teach them how to think here. Because if I give you a bucket of options, the first option that you touch has an implication on all other options. So what was before green turns red. What was maybe red, a no-go, turns green because it aligns with this one option. So options is mostly companies, budget-driven companies, which is the majority, go for the cheapest, the easiest and fastest solution, not for the best affordable solution. So the thing is that they start like an old radio. They start to tweak here and completely mess it up here. So then they start to turn on the other wheel. And so you are constantly in adjusting what you think it might be, instead of really doing the right work from the beginning on to define these guardrails, to define them in a holistic way, instead of, oh, we are the team, yada, yada, we have to improve our media, sales, marketing, public relations, whatever, and then we do just one solution. Then comes the people from, let's say, the digital twin department and start to somehow, and then you have within one company, 15 different solutions that are not compatible because these different teams do not talk to each other and do not know even about each other. And then you are having this, if we start aligning it, it will cost far more. So we simply stop this project. What can we do with it right now? And then over excessively using one tool until it's unusable. This is the pain in all of these CFO dominated companies. I'm very sorry. It's not pessimistic. It's simply realistic. I'm trying to fight this.
And just to jump in there, you both mentioned digital twins being a fairly solid example of XR success in enterprise. Do you think that's because there is an easy integration there amongst the other pieces of the puzzle when it comes to enterprise technology? It's easy for digital twins to be applied fairly broadly, unintrusively towards other hardware, XR or otherwise. There's obviously a lot of AI integrations with digital twins. Do you think that's a fair point? Are digital twins a good example of this distribution?
Yeah, I think it's where it has the value. I think it's very clear how it can be leveraged, and I think as you're explaining some of the value of digital twin to clients, they immediately get it. I wouldn't say it's easy necessarily to implement because you're dealing with legacy systems, and then we all talk about this kind of cross-device functionality. You can access it on your mobile device, you can access it on your laptop, and you can access it with a wearable. But there are trade-offs in all of that. And then if you're looking at wearables and you have outward-facing cameras, that now you really have to start thinking about how do we lock down that data, because you don't want to be on a manufacturing line and have your schematics for your manufacturing line, be on a public cloud somewhere. And so we're kind of pushing forward on all these elements, but tying it all together in practice is what I think the challenge is. And I think understanding what the digital twin maturity model is, from going from just a digital replica or even just a model really that's effectively offline, where you're only able to update static data, all the way up to real-time two-way exchange of data, and then adding simulation on top of it, which is where AI comes in. That is a significantly costly path. But the good news is you build it once, and then you're building layers of understanding of your data that has context to both your physical space and the geography, right? So the one world terrain, and being able to anchor that in the real world. So it's a stepped approach, but and this is just logical advice. Find the highest value problem you can. Like if you're about to build a new manufacturing line, you can leverage those assets, build a digital twin of that line, and you can make sure you meet compliance standards with the digital twin in parallel with the build out. You can train your teams on it. You can run the ergonomic passes. You can do all of the things that you need to do in advance or in parallel to actually manufacturing that or building that line. But again, all of these things are a process, and it does require it requires a significant amount of planning and resources to be able to build digital twins at scale, but the value is tremendous for basically any company, right? It doesn't matter what you're trying to do, having that level of data from your existing sources, right? IoT data, you can have, training data, you can have physical data, you can have digital engineering data, right? So I do think it's a foundational technology. I think it's going to be a while before it becomes predominant across every industry, although most industries are dabbling in some regard, even if it's just asset-based today.
Currently, you have multiple twins, let's say it like this, in various systems. If it's your ERP system, then you have your network system, and so the IT has a different system running than the overall controlling guys, etc., etc. The beauty on the digital twin is as soon within the company you've developed the right mindset. The right mindset is, for example, I do not keep my data for me only. It's about sharing this data, that it brings the value. Information hiding is, in today's time, one of the most toxic behaviors that we can have. So as soon everyone agrees to open their own data pots, databases, and so on, you can start and creating a modular system. If you've avoided a vendor login, okay? So this modular system means, let's say you build a new warehouse. So the architect gives you already the virtual representation of it that you can upload somewhere. So you have it already here. Your facility management can use all the sensors that it have for automation to dock it into it and to use this digital twin perspective. If you have then an assembly line, I mean, in the past, in the automotive, when we've been planning a new manufacturing plant, beside of the architect, we started to build cardboard models to go through, to simulate manually how it looks like, even one-on-one size, to see, okay, if I really go here through, do I have some kind of bottleneck? Now, with the data from the architect, with the input from the facility management, with the input from your edge AI and so on devices, with all of these industrial robots, you can start and simulate how it might behave. And with more AI, the data that you are collecting end to end from your suppliers, so when they deliver you parts, you can already start seeing that there might be there is some kind of problem. What does it mean? What assembly line do I have to stop? So theoretically, with all the clean data, you could start pre-simulate how an outage might reflect in the next few hours, in the next 2 days. But for this, everyone needs to have the same mindset. We don't hide it for our own career, but we do it for the company.
Fantastic. And both of you already mentioned the human-centric side of things too. That's another aspect I'd like to chat about. But namely, under the consideration of two other news pieces that came on this month. One being the new Pico 4 Ultra MR headset, and HTC, as of recording, they have not announced what their new headset is, but it's coming in about just over a week or so, I think. But I'm less so interested about the hardware because there's a new headset coming out every month by the seams of it. But what I'm interested in is if either of you think that one of these companies or perhaps another hardware vendor are taking that human-centric approach, or do you think there's a bit of an over-reliance on being the biggest player in terms of hardware specifications? Do you think that human-centric approach is considered enough by these major headset vendors? Jay, would you like to continue? And Amy, it'd be great to hear your thoughts.
No, it's not. It's simply to get the biggest piece of the cake. ByteDance and their Pico. I mean, come on, ByteDance. Seriously? It's like an announcement from Facebook. What are they interested into? It's more or less the data. So it will be not human centricity, it will be human scrapicity. simply the interest is different. What is their motivation? Qui bono. I don't trust these guys if I would have to throw them against the wall. Sorry to say it. They have to convince me. When it comes into HTC, of course, they are a well-positioned partner. They are doing some cool stuff. They want to be this business-oriented, business-valued towards digital twins and so on. I don't think currently they have really the human centricity in scope. For this, it would need to be a far broader announcement. More people should be part of the whole discussion. The data that the headsets are collecting should be yours. All the headsets that we have currently are not really mobile. You still have your controllers and so on. Look onto the Pico. So this is not, we still as humans have to adapt on this nonsense. Human centricity means I act completely natural. I can walk wherever I want. I can have access to the data that it grabs from me, that I am the owner of this data. I can define what you can do with it. And that I can define where I'm using this headset. Not that I'm again locked away somewhere, that I need a Facebook account or any other nonsense. This is simply control. It's domination. This is not human centricity.
Well, I will, as someone who's actually worked with a lot of the OEMs, including HTC, I will say they do actually take human centricity into this. And they are
no doubt
very, very, very good at producing hardware. And you know, but I think there's kind of two separate discussions. I think in terms of the usability of these devices, you know, they do studies. You know, I mean, you look at all of the headset. I mean, you look at Magic Leap and the work that they did to be able to allow any type of head, any type of face to be able to comfortably wear those, you know, that headset. The same thing with Apple. You know, Apple made huge strides in making that device, the weight distribution, the IPD, customizing it to each person. That's one piece of it. They're still not wearable. We call them wearable devices. They're not really wearable. I mean, you know, depending on your tolerance for having this thing on your head, we are unfortunately hamstrung just by the size and the weight and the power consumption and the specs that these devices will actually are able to carry at this particular moment. Now that will change. You know, we will get to these, you know, this beautiful form factor. And, you know, Meta is reporting that their deal with Ray-Ban, their Ray-Ban stories, that they're, you know, that they're flying off the shelves, right? Because they are wearable. Now, the other piece of it is Jay's point. Where's all that data going? I've noticed actually that in, you know, people's Instagram feeds, you know, it'll now say, you know, made with Ray-Ban, or they've got the announcement on there. And that makes me a little bit nervous. You know, there are some privacy concerns to that. I think we will start to see a backlash of that. You know, with people like, why suddenly am I being recorded by somebody's glasses across the way there and posted on Instagram? And I will tell you that this is a, you know, fun fact that as I was scrolling through my Instagram feed, because I do every once in a while, I did get an ad for O'Reilly's book on Kubernetes. And it just so happens that I am talking a lot about on-prem deployments and Kubernetes. And I may even now be saying Kubernetes clusters in my sleep. And I blame my current clients for that. And then suddenly I'm getting ads for that. So that is a perfect example of, you know, are our devices actually listening to us? And and just trying to sell us things effectively. So I think, when we're looking at this issue of user centricity, it is quite broad. But at the end of the day, we also, as consumers, we have to take responsibility for our data as much as we can, and we have to be willing to manage the data. So I think a company, and there are a few of them out there. There's U.AI. There's a number of companies now working on this kind of self-sovereign AI that will collect your data, that will, consistently kind of ping servers to see, where you're mentioned, where your personal data is. And I think more and more we're going to start to see mechanism. Google has enabled you to remove your PII if you do a search and it comes up in search, so you can report that, and purportedly they will remove that. So, there's a little bit of this cause and effect, and we have to start really, we have to just do it, right? It takes 20 minutes to do that in Chrome.
So
just do it, try it.
As first, when I'm talking about user centricity, the most important points are honestly not ergonomics. I don't give a damn. Here it comes really about the technology, if it adapts onto you. So not how you wear it, but the usability of it. So that I do not have to learn gestures to command it. It should learn how I'm commanding it, so that my individual personality becomes part of it. This is maybe the most important. So not to adapt on what someone thought might be useful, but these machines have to adapt on what is really useful for you. This is just to put it into what's important for me. Now that you've mentioned Google and OpenAI and yada yada, we have currently, I've posted yesterday, we have currently here an issue because Microsoft's Copilot, these LLMs, a ChatGPT, a chatbot, is not a replacement for any kind of search, Google search, whatever it is, because they mix up things. There is this case of, in Germany, a court reporter, and when you use Copilot to look up his name, this thing mixes up what he wrote about and put him into the position of the one that was sentenced to whatever. So he's being described as a child molester. He's being described as a fraudster and so on. Plus, then Copilot offers you to give you his address and even offers you to set up the route to him. So this is a really dangerous development, and you cannot, even with OpenAI, you cannot delete the wrong informations about you. This is simply, it's impossible. And I, for example, run a search on my own name. What kind of nonsense comes around? And you report it and nothing happens, because you as this individual is simply not important enough. It's the masses, how these companies make money. They don't make money on you as an individual. And here I fear that regulation, that lawsuits have to simply teach the big companies a little bit of humbleness.
I think they don't want to remove you, Jay, because they don't want to remove all of your nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
That you're constantly delivering to all of us.
I
just
like
glowing positivity, sunshine and fairy dust.
It's very true, though. I think there's a side here where the over-reliance on the chatbots without a human side to that, whether that be the person using it or the company itself, I think that's a big factor at play. But just to wrap up on our last question, our last focus point, and that's on the Pico headset specifically, and it might fall down into these data, these bits about data we're talking about right now. But during our last Big XR News show, Letitia brought up an interesting point when it came to Pico and its enterprise usage, that certain areas in the EU, certain companies are a little bit are not too into the idea of a CCP-owned company getting access to enterprise data. And I think that's specifically interesting for this Pico 4 headset, because they're launching, or they are including, the Pico Business Suite within that. Now, I guess as a little bit of I'm not expecting a completely deep insight into geopolitics, etc. But I do wonder, on your perspectives, from what you're both learning from different sides of the world, is this conflict of interest? Will it present a problem for Pico as they are expanding into Western markets, or perhaps is this an over worry from enterprise point of view? And do you think that Pico Business Week can kick off? Amy, it'd be great to learn your perspective, and Jay, you could wrap it up for us.
Yeah, that's a challenge for all companies, right? It's the same thing with Meta, right? Are we, because they've been announcing, a version of, it was Facebook for Business in 2015, and they released it again in 2018. Like, they haven't quite been able to sort of coalesce it. There are companies that are using it, and I am certain that they are doing what they can to secure their data. But the reality is, nobody gets fired for making the decision to not work with one of those companies, right? Because there is a question mark where that data is going. Certainly in public sector, that is a huge concern. The security of the data and this data living on servers where we don't necessarily know who has access, and that again, when I was joking about Kubernetes clusters, but where we're able to deploy these devices in either air-gapped environments or on purely private cloud. That's really what companies are looking at in being able to secure their data. And especially when you start to think about digital twins and having, full schematics of your physical space, of your manufacturing lines, which includes a lot of IP, having that on servers that you don't know who has access to, that is just a risk that most companies can't take. And I'm not going to say that's going to completely stop their business, because there are some workarounds, but fundamentally it's challenging.
And I just like, before I get your thoughts there, Jay, I like the points you bring there about digital twins. You are right, especially considering the sectors that use those, energy, manufacturing, etc. Those data points are of great value and of great need to be classified to a certain degree. So it'll be interesting to see where not just Pico, Meta, etc. all go forward in regards to this becoming a little bit more prominent. Jay, it'd be great to get your thoughts, and then we'll wrap up for the shorter session.
So, Amy already mentioned Meta. Who really trusts Meta, right? So that's the discussion. We are currently in some kind of hysterical reaction on China. We point always with our fingers on China, how they are having their social scoring system and so on and so on. Honestly, we do the same. We do exactly the same. And we will do even more on this. So it's some kind of hypocritical behavior. And I think it's jealousy that we are not able to collect this data. Why should they collect the data? Someone collects the data. So, for example, the tax authorities are using heavily AI systems to verify your income, to discover any kind of, I don't want to do this, or credit rating agencies that are climbing through your life. Right now, each of these data possessors somehow does it. It's not done on a bigger meta level, like maybe assuming in China. We don't know what the governments are doing. So here, for example, there is a European initiative ongoing that wants to force car manufacturers to give them a real-time access to your connected vehicles, so that the Leos can immediately log into your car, see how many smartphones are attached, so therefore to know how many people are there, to scrape your contact lists. Are you having a phone call? Where is your destination? And so on and so on, because this data is already being collected. And car manufacturer does not really have the need to store the 100 last positions where you've been in the navigation system. They do not need really to know how often are you accelerating, how many times the doors are being opened, how many times are you adjusting the seat, This is data that has nothing to do to provide you as a customer-centric, let's say, service. It's simply to have data to adjust my fucking business model on you. And this is the real hypocrisy behind all of this. That everyone is right now pointing onto someone else. This is where the data goes to, without revealing what they want to do with the data. And therefore, I'm a huge fan of human centricity, which means the data stays at me. I don't need a cloud service if it can run on my smartphone and it stays on my smartphone. And only if someone needs some specific data part, then I actively allow him to get this data. Everything else is just 1984 and not the good 1984.
Brilliant. I think a conversation for maybe a future episode we have a bit more time really is that data side of things, because it's getting more and more valuable, getting more and more complex, and there's more and more things to understand there. But as I say, a little bit of a shorter episode, a little bit of a shorter recording, but I think there was a lot to take away from that in its own right. So Jay, Amy, thank you so much for your time again this month. It was great to have you back on the show, and I look forward to next month that we can have everyone else on call and see what they think about 3D data.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. See ya. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.